all who have gathered together here and those who have joined us on Facebook. Welcome. Good morning. William Branham was a minister and a faith healer who claimed to be a prophet come to prelude Christ's second coming. No ego there. He told many stories about his life that appear to be genuine and true when they are considered individually or in isolation. However, when similar stories of his life are compared to each other and cross-checked for authenticity, it is regularly apparent that many of them are entirely inconsistent and contradictory with each other. In his biography and numerous other publications, Branham claimed that he was born in a little cabin in the mountains of Kentucky on April 6, 1909, at 5 o'clock in the morning, with only a midwife present. However, these claims are directly contradicted by other statements in which he specifically made it known that his mother and he did not actually know where he was born, and that there were no records of his birth. Best I know, I was born in Kentucky where they don't have birth records. His language, not mine. And you know what my birthmark is? Birth record in Kentucky? The year the old stump blowed away up over the hill. And that's all they know. So I don't know how old I am. So which account is true? Or did he have different stories for different audiences? One that would be more relevant to the circumstances, interests, culture of the people he was speaking to that day. For those who read last week's lectionary choices, you will have noticed that the gospel reading was from John. It was about the calling of Peter and Andrew. According to it, they were followers of John who switched allegiance when they heard Jesus speak. I often wonder how John felt when his followers may have been slowly leaving for his cousin, even though he did acknowledge publicly that Jesus was the one more powerful than himself. I just wonder, because it can still hurt. Anyway, I didn't choose it because this week's reading is also about the calling of Peter and Andrew, the same guys, but it's the story that we're more familiar with, that we can picture in our mind's eye. So let's sing. Holy Spirit, hear us. That's how we sing. Breathe into the music of the praise we bring. Holy Spirit, prompt us when we try to pray. Near around and teach us what we ought to say. Holy Spirit, teach us when the words we read bring to life the Bible with the light we need. Come into this place.
We make special by our presence.
Come into this place where the ordinary is made blessed.
The human is celebrated, the compassionate is expected.
Come into this place.
Together with the ever-present Spirit, we make it a holy place.
And let us stand and sing.
Reason
inviting us to sail out of our smug harbors into the uncharted waters of faith, to wander off from our predictable paths, to follow you into the unpredictable footsteps of the kingdom, to leave the comfort of our homes and accompany you into the uncomfortable neighborhoods we usually avoid. As we wait in our simple, sometimes crazy, uncertain lives, speak to us, Spirit of grace, of that hope which is our anchor, of that peace which is our rock, of that grace which is our refuge, in whose name we sing. Everybody know what that is? Some of you?
Electric fencer.
Oh, good. Do we only have one farmer in here?
I wanted to give him a chance.
Okay. So Carol Tucker sent me this picture, and then she texted me a couple days later and said, "Oh, I need to change my, what she thought about it, which was good, because I don't like to stand up here and get it all wrong. Oh, I might still. So apparently, this is an electric fence thing, and I don't know those buttons, those things down at the bottom. I don't know. It's all about the electricity. But that little gray thing there above the yellow stripe, that's where the light goes. And if it's on and flashing, it says what? It means what?
The fencer is on and it's emitting power on the fence.
Which means?
Don't touch.
Don't touch, right? Okay, we got it. Okay, this is good. Don't touch. If we're talking about Christ as the light, but that's when we're not supposed to touch. We have a problem here. So I was racking my brains trying to think how to make this fit in, and I thought, you know what, maybe those are the fake evangelists. People think that they're the light of Christ, proclaiming the message of the gospel, but it's a fake message. And we've heard in the past about, we've watched them even on TV, and where they cure people. People come up and they haven't walked in years, and they get up on the stage, and they press their hand against their forehead, and they fall back, and people catch them, and they walk off the stage all cured. But we've heard what happens after. They aren't really cured. Yeah, they're all fake. It's all fake. Think of the prosperity gospel. Does anybody know what that is? Prosperity gospel? God blesses you with everything you have. If you've been blessed with millions of dollars, big homes, jobs at six-figure salaries, God has blessed you with that, and you are not expected to share it. You are expected to enjoy it. It's your blessing. Now, so, two things that I hope we don't believe. Because Matthew's gospel, Matthew says, "Take heed that no one deceives you. For many will come in my name and they will deceive many." So that's what we need to watch out for. There are those fake little lights that claim to be the light of Christ, but they aren't. But do pay attention to that when it's flashing. Do pay attention. Yeah. Now someone said recently that they touched it and it didn't give them a big wallop. But Who was it?
Trust me, it wasn't on then.
Other than that, maybe you're just a little weird now, but, you know, yeah.
They
So-
come in different sizes. And in the winter, the snow insulates it.
Okay, oh,
So you won't get as much of the jolt,
Okay.
but some
so if I s-
people, my father was one that could hang on to an electric fence, and he could just stand there and hang on to it. And
really?
then he showed me what it was like when he grabbed my hand, and I got the whole jolt, right?
Really?
His body vibrated, but he could do that anytime, he could just push the wire down and climb through. Some are like that, seriously. That's why they don't get much of a jolt on it.
Okay, that's good. So I'm not supposed to go and stick my tongue on it like I did?
Not advisable.
I'll do that at least once, right? Okay.
What you talking funny
Okay, Ian's now going to share his flight with us. And the reason he is sharing it is because I've got the faintest idea what it's all about. And it doesn't matter what Ian explains to me, if it's scientific. Nope, don't get it. Don't get it.
I don't believe that for a moment.
Here's that little mark thing. Hold that
Oh,
way.
yeah, good idea. Yeah, so all of you who have enjoyed parties probably in the 80s have probably seen these. So the plasma bulb, some people refer to it as a party bulb, you know, all these nice little lights. You know, you put it in the middle of the room and you talk about it, I guess. But anyways, you can see a little better that way. And so this goes back to your high school science years, you know, those great years, you know, the 4 states of matter. Of course, everybody knows this stuff. I know this is going to bore you anyways, but anyway, so there's gases, liquids, solids, and then plasma. And this is a plasma bulb because the light that you're seeing from this is produced when high voltage electricity is going through the gas, producing a plasma. So it knocks all those electrons off, or some of the electrons off the various atoms in there. And in doing so, you get these lovely colors. And these little blue arcs are actually little pads, sort of little miniature lightning bolts. So if I ground it out with my fingers, I can move them around. My hair doesn't even stand on end. It's really it'd be more fun if the hair would stand on end. Yeah. So I always thought that was kind of fascinating, and I think we're all fascinated by light. What would we do without it? You know, that's our brain gets most of its information through our eyes and through light, so it's really important stuff to all of us. But what is light? You know, how would you define it to somebody? You know, if somebody who was blind and they had no concept of light, how would you tell them what it is? And so scientists through, well, the centuries have been trying to figure this out. Christian Huygens, Dutch scientist in the 1600s, thought, well, it's some kind of a wave. And there's another guy that we all know, somebody by the name of Isaac Newton, you know, he's a pretty clever fellow. And he thought, well, it's particulate matter. But they couldn't prove one way or the other. And then this unusually bright guy by the name of Albert Einstein figured it out, and he said, no, this will blow everybody's mind. It's actually a dual property. It actually is particulate and wave at the same time, and it can actually change what it does in relation to where it's at and what it's doing, which is totally beyond me. So this is one of those things, you know, we always wonder about stuff. We all have a sense of wonder, and this is one of mine. I just wonder about light and how it acts and what it does and why it does what it does. So, you know, every time you look at a lightning bolt, for instance, you're seeing plasma in action and you're seeing light. If you have an old-fashioned fluorescent tube, that's a plasma light. So plasma is actually something we're unknowingly familiar with, but I think this is the prettiest form of it. And of course, the most important one when we come to light, of course, is the sun. The core of the sun is about 15 million degrees, and the corona, the outside of the sun, is about 6,000 degrees Celsius. And so that's a temperature where the atoms have to dissociate, so you've got electrons flying around freely. And that's a plasma. And that plasma is what keeps you and I alive, because of course we get it as radiation and heat and light. And so, yeah, light's pretty wonderful stuff. So there, and if anybody wants to come up, you know, and oh, you gotta do it. I'll leave it right there.
For me, the symbolism is that just because I don't understand how something functions, doesn't mean that it doesn't function.
And that's sort of like our faith in God. You know, we may not be able to prove that God is there, but it's our faith. We know that God's there, and it's important that we believe, and God does contribute to our lives and how we live. So, yeah. And being I now know that I do not understand science, I could probably explain the Trinity and get an A+ better than, you know, than what I understood all that. You know, but I'm like you, I just believe.
If you can do that, you can do this.
I just believe. So thank you. Thank you for bringing in one of your favorite things. Oh, we're going to sing. And this is an old hymn. You're going to love it. You're really going to sing it out loud, right? Everybody seemed to know that. Yeah. Or at least you knew the refrain. You didn't seem to sing the verses quite so enthusiastic. That's good. Okay. We are going to crack open a hymn book.
A hymn book.
The Voices United. The big one. Not the little one, the big one. The big one. Oh. Yeah, page 754, please. Okay. So we will, I have a little thing to say before. Okay, but we are going to sing that. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to sing it We have that refrain at the top. Normally we'll play it once, and then we'll sing it once, and then we'll begin. And you have your, oh, I need one too. Oh. And then we'll say it with the refrain there. What was 27? I'm not like Ian already. Ian. Okay. So Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist who survived the death camps in Nazi Germany. Frankl made a startling discovery about why some survived the horrible conditions and some did not. He looked at several factors: health, vitality, family structure, intelligence, survival skills. In the end, he concluded that none of these factors were primarily responsible. The single most significant factor he realized was to have a sense of future vision, even in the worst of times. Those who were to survive had a compelling conviction that they still had a mission to perform, some important work left to do, that there was hope for the future, and they were part of it. On The Current on CBC, they were discussing reasons for optimism today. Many of us may wonder if they even have enough material to put up a reasonable argument for it these days. One speaker, Steven Pinker, did a good job of letting us know how there are trends happening that suggest that things are getting better. And he listed a number. Trouble is, we just don't hear about them, these positive developments. They're reported in the headlines. They don't make the news. And this allows this negativity to live in many people. He says that people watch too much violence, too much about wars, shows on corruption, the destructive stuff that makes it hard to combat these attitudes. He doesn't say that we shouldn't acknowledge the bad stuff that's happening. He just reminds us that there are solutions that can and will change the future for the better, and we must be part of that, making that happen. This was the kind of attitude that David portrays himself as having. He has great confidence that God has been with him and will continue to be with him, even though he has to go through some pretty rough times. God, he believes, will always be helping him through them. So let's recite Psalm 27, hopefully believing that it's true for ourselves, but also for those who badly need to hear this reassurance that there is hope for the future. There's two more. Whom then shall I fear?
God is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?
When the wicked close in to devour me,
it is they, my enemies and my foes, who stumble and fall.
If any army should encamp against me, my heart shall not be afraid.
If war should arise against me, even then I will not be dismayed. God is my light and saving help, I shall not be afraid.
One thing I've asked of God, for which I long, that I may dwell in God's house all the days of my life.
To gaze on your beauty, O God, and to seek you in your temple.
For in the time of trouble you will give me shelter.
You will hide me under the cover of your tent. You will set me high upon a rock.
And now you have raised my head above my enemies around about me.
Therefore I will offer in your dwelling a sacrifice of great gladness. God is my light and saving help, I shall not be afraid.
Hear my voice, O God, when I call, have mercy and answer me. Your face, O God, I seek.
Do not hide your face from me. Do not reject your servant in anger. You who have been my helper.
Do not cast me off or forsake me, O God, my Savior.
Though my father and mother forsake me,
believe that I shall see God's goodness in the land of the living.
Wait for God, be strong and take courage. Yes, wait for God. God is my light and saving help, I shall not be afraid.
I like to imagine the details which aren't recorded in a biblical story. I guess that someone deemed them to be unimportant to the plot line and its outcome, but for me they fill out the picture. It appears that Jesus set up his own home, that he left his parents' place. I wonder how they responded. Did they breathe a sigh of relief? Something like in the movie Finally Launched, with Matthew McConaughey. Remember that one? He had been living with his parents, and they couldn't get him to move out. So they hired a woman whose profession was to launch him out of the family house. It was a good movie. Anyway, I wonder why Jesus left. Did the Spirit finally give him a nudge out the door saying, "It's time, Son of God, move it"? And who helped him choose his new lodgings? Did his mom send him with some things to help him get started? Anyway, it's not implicitly said, but there's also a veiled suggestion that he might have made the move out of fear. Whether it's for his own safety or his family's, we don't know. But let's listen to the story.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. We have a reading from Matthew 4, verses 12 to 23. When Jesus got word that John had been arrested, he returned to Galilee. He moved from his hometown Nazareth to the lakeshore village Capernaum. There, in Galilee, Jesus started preaching. He picked up where John left off. Change your life, God's kingdom is here. Walking along the beach of Lake Galilee, Jesus saw two brothers, Simon, later called Peter, and Andrew. They were fishing, throwing their nets into the lake. It was their regular work. Jesus said to them, "Come with me, I'll make a new kind of fisherman out of you. I'll show you how to catch men and women instead of perch and bass." They didn't ask questions, but simply dropped their nets and followed. A short distance down the beach, they came upon another pair of brothers, James and John, Zebedee's sons. These two were sitting in a boat with their father Zebedee, mending their fish nets. Jesus made the same offer to them, and they were just as quick to follow, abandoning boat and father. From there, he went all over Galilee. He used synagogues for meeting places and taught people the truth of God. God's kingdom was his theme, that beginning right now, they were under God's government, a good government. He also healed people of their diseases and of the bad effects of their bad lives. Word got around the entire Roman province of Syria. People brought anybody with an ailment, whether mental, emotional, or physical. Jesus healed them, one and all. We are blessed to hear these ancient stories and now to consider them in light of our own.
When fairy tales begin with that familiar phrase, "once upon a time," it's a signal that a great adventure is about to happen. If Matthew had known of this phrase, he might have used it to introduce this second account of the calling of the first disciples. I don't know if these fishermen anticipated that it would be a great adventure. The writer of Matthew, who wrote his account at least 45 years after the fact, knew, of course, that it would be. And we do too. It would be a roller coaster of an adventure with ups and downs all along the way. Like most stories start, it was just an ordinary day for these men. Simon and Andrew wake, they wipe the sleep from their eyes, they walk down to the sea, unroll their nets, and try their luck. This is their routine, nothing exciting or noteworthy. But Jesus arrives, and their lives are changed in an instant. Follow me, and I will make you fishers of men and women, not perch or bass. With just a few words, they're his. Then Jesus moves on and sets his sights on James and John, and they leave their boat and everything that goes with it. All that's familiar, it gives them a modicum of security. In the blink of an eye, or so it seems in this story, they are by Jesus' side, wide-eyed, dripping wet from the sea. Now the venture is about to begin for all the participants of this story. Well, almost everyone. There's one person who wouldn't be part of the adventure. A minor character, but still one who was there, who heard the words spoken, who saw the results. He appears just before the curtain falls, informing us that James and John were fishing that day with their father Zebedee. Matthew leaves us with one final backward glance. One translation says, immediately they left the boat and their father and followed Jesus. I know that I should come up with some deeply profound teaching on this passage. It would likely be around discipleship and how we answer the call, but we did that last week. Today, I can't help wondering why Zebedee didn't go along. Could it have simply because he wasn't invited? Maybe. But as Christians of two very liberal denominations, we like to believe that everyone is invited. Each of us has the opportunity to respond to God's grace in our own way. And if that's true, Zebedee stands out in this once-upon-a-time adventure as the one who doesn't respond. While 4 spring to their feet, maybe he hesitates. 4 drop their nets, maybe he isn't quite ready to go. I'm not saying this to beat up on poor Zebedee. It's not about trying to make him look bad next to his sons, those poster boys for the Christian enthusiasm. But I wonder if he might be the one we can best relate to out of all the characters in this story. Most of us have likely been known to sit in the boat or on the fence, but not the one with that electric charge going through it. Well, we've mulled things over before we've decided what action to take on the position. Zebedee reminds us that most days of our lives just don't measure up to the phrase, once upon a time, and all the excitement it promises. Some days we're just workers going to ho-hum jobs, distracted shoppers going in circles in the mall, farmers going back and forth in a field, teachers offering up the same courses year after year, retirees with each day not much different from the next. And some days we're just content to sit and do nothing. We're not always prepared for the adventure. Perhaps at those times we're still following Jesus, but we're also dragging our feet. In this sense, Zebedee is for me a cautionary figure. He's a reminder that I can't stay in the boat my whole life and still find myself in the place where Jesus is going. I imagine Zebedee sitting there in his boat, watching his sons get smaller and smaller. And then he stands up, and he can see them for a few more minutes in the distance. And then he climbs up on the seat, and he can see them even a little longer. If his boat had a mast, maybe he shimmied up it to watch the last of the retreating backs. But eventually they disappeared from sight. What does he do then? Just plunk himself back down on the seat in the boat and begin to think, why wasn't I invited? Am I too old? Not educated enough? Not part of the in-group? How did he feel when he was left behind, even by his sons? Have we ever felt that way? When friends have been invited to join others in going somewhere, but we weren't included? Surely there was one birthday that we were never invited to as a child, or a barbecue as an adult. Can we identify with how Zebedee may have felt? Jesus almost appears to have been a little thoughtless that day, leaving him sitting there all alone. Anyway, like Zebedee, we can't stay in the boat our whole lives and still think we're in the place where Jesus is going. We must follow before he disappears off into the sunset. Because when Jesus is around, we're offered something new and exciting. But how do we make our decision whether we're going to follow or not? Are we willing to take the risk on the unknown? Or do we want to give up what we feel the most, for what we feel we're the most comfortable with? And actually, do we need a specific invitation, or are we all invited to take part in the adventure? I wonder, would Jesus have turned Zebedee away if he had followed? Could it have been 13? Someone has said that any real change implies the breakup of the world as one has always known it, the end of safety. If we want to spiritually grow, we'll have to open ourselves to new experiences, new ways of doing things, building new relationships, even as we get older. But all of us know that change is hard, so we often cling to the familiar. We clutch those behaviors and beliefs that make us feel safe. Yet this kind of attachment can put the development of our spiritual lives in peril. Our hearts and our souls can become tethered to something other than the love of God. We hold ourselves back from what we were meant to become. That's what can happen if we choose to stay in the boat, holding fast to the gunwales, even when Jesus appears on the shore. Of course, we don't know what happened to Zebedee. We do know that despite their initial enthusiasm, Peter, Andrew, James, and John were not the perfect followers. When the chips were down, Peter denied Christ. James and John missed the whole point of Jesus' teaching, looking for security of their own advancement. Remember their mom's request, "Can my son sit beside you in heaven, Jesus?" We are so like them. Jesus calls us countless times during our lives. And sometimes we're up to the task, other times we don't feel as if we are. However we've responded in the past, though, we need to know that the adventure is never complete. The disciples may have thought it was when Jesus died. They never wanted him crucified, but they might have felt some relief when the stone was rolled across the entrance to the tomb, sealing everything shut. Now they could just go back to being fishermen, which they knew how to do, rather than be fishers of people, which they didn't. Back on the lake, they would be removed from Roman threats. John and James would find their dad waiting for them because he couldn't have done all the fishing alone. But the resurrection was yet another disruption, yet another invitation, and they had new choices to make. When Christ calls us beyond what is familiar, he beckons us. He calls us to quit doing something we don't know how to do to become someone we're not yet sure of how to be. It's not just that we're taking a risk on Christ. Every time he calls us, he is taking a risk on us. Looking at this account, part of me says, what was Jesus thinking? He'd been announced as the Son of God. He'd been commissioned to establish the community of God in the here and now. And to do this, he chooses a backwater town of no account from which to launch his campaign. Strike one. He surrounds himself with riffraff. Strike two. He leads off with a message that lands his predecessor, John, in jail. Strike three, you're out. So given these apparent blunders and bad choices, the question we might want to give voice to is, did Jesus just plain want to fail? Might look like that to us. Or did he know something we don't? Is it best to work with the grassroots people, to enter their world where the real but difficult, challenging work needs to be done? Maybe Jesus knew what he was doing. Maybe it's us who resist his carefully planned call to follow him into the adventure that awaits us who are wronged. I feel sorry for Zebedee. There he was with his children, helping him run the family business. Life was going well. I'm sure they weren't affluent, but they were content. And then it all fell apart when that man, Jesus, sauntered down to the beach. Now, all we know about Zebedee is that he didn't go with his sons. He was never one of the 12. But here's the thing. Towards the end of Matthew's gospel, there is that story of James and John's mom coming to Jesus and making that ridiculous request. I mean, she's probably like any other mother. She wanted the best for her boys. But what she wanted was a little presumptuous. But it seems like she was there, among Jesus' followers. Jesus had been teaching them, and then all of a sudden she pops up and says, then the mothers of the sons of Zebedee came to him with their sons. Now, given the fact that women were chattel at the time, I can't see her being able to leave her husband to fend for himself. So maybe, just maybe, Zebedee, when the boys had disappeared off into the sunset, maybe he sat back down in his boat and thought about it. The words, "I'll make you fishers of men and women, not perch and bass," played around in his head for a while. Maybe he sat there that day, the next, and the next, until one day he thought, these nets are too darn heavy for one man. I'm getting too old to do this alone. My sons need to take responsibility to care for their aging parents. I've never seen the world past those hills, and that's just what you can do when you retire. You can travel. My boat has sprung a new leak. I have a few denarii put away for a rainy day. My wife is lonely for her sons. I'll take her to see them. And maybe I'll see what this man Jesus is proposing. Perhaps it's time for a career move for me. I still have lifeblood in me for something more satisfying than cleaning smelly fish day after day. So better late than never, Zebedee and his wife just may have packed up, closed the shutters of their house, pulled the boat up on the beach, and went in search of Jesus and the new adventure. After all, we're never too old for a new experience. And it couldn't have been too hard to find Jesus. After all, he was always stirring things up with his radical ideas. Zebedee and his wife just had to go where the crowds were. Let's sing.
Thank you.
men didn't even have to think too much before they gave up pretty much everything in their lives, tangible as well as the intangible. So let us now give with such a gift. God, we have seen your glory, felt the touch of your love, and your presence is with us.
With joyful hearts, we offer you our gifts. Having heard your call, we offer you our lives and our service. Amen.
So, not much is happening. The Bible study is supposed to be on Tuesday at 9 out at Cousins. We know that unfortunately that's the same time as that exercise class, which was absolutely fantastic last week. If you didn't go, you should go. Yeah, it was quite good. There were 32 people there, and I think they planned originally for about 6 or 7. So it was, yeah, it was a lot of people. It was good. So I don't know how they're gonna. They think that they might start another one on Thursday morning. So. Yeah, unless you hear otherwise, the Bible study will continue. We're going to talk about the 2 stories in Genesis of the creation stories, the 2 of them. I had something else to say too, but I can't remember what it was. That movie, Otto, A Man Called Otto. It's down at Minister, and it's being held over. So there's a matinee today at 2, and then on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, it's on at 7:30 at night. Excellent movie, and if you can't see the movie, you should get the book. In a way, it's all about grieving, but it's funny. It's good. Is there anything else we need to share? I had a thought, but it went away. I mean, that was 3 hours ago. It was bound to go if it was 3 hours ago. Anybody know of anything else? No? Okay. Liz?
You want me up there or down here? This is a long one. The scenes are heartbreaking. Families confined to underground subway stations. Children stand alone in endless lines at borders. Can't see. Mothers printing their names and contact information in permanent marker on their children's backs, lest they are separated or worse. Since the war started, over 7.9 million refugees have fled Ukraine. 90% of them women and children. Gifts with Vision, the United Church's giving catalog, has just unveiled its latest gifts to help them. A gift of $25 will provide families fleeing from Ukraine with a hygiene package containing items like toothpaste, laundry detergent, and disinfectants. A gift of $38 will provide one food basket with staples such as cooking oil, buckwheat, canned fish, dried peas, and condensed milk. $40 will provide one hygiene package plus a supply of incontinence products. What really strikes me about the food basket is the attention to detail. It has chocolate and cookies in it. This speaks volumes about going beyond the survival basics and trying to build morale, says Katie Murphy, the United Church Annual Giving Associate. The hygiene basket is thoughtful too. It's not just about personal hygiene. It also includes laundry and cleaning products. And remembering incontinence materials for those who need them is all about helping people maintain their dignity. Sarah Charters, director of the United Church's philanthropy unit, is glad the new gifts have been added in time for Christian Family Sunday. It's a day the church sets aside to reflect on the importance of families. I hope people will be inspired this year to take action for families fleeing Ukraine, says Charters. We can't end the war in Ukraine, but we can do something to help. War can give a gift of food and hygiene. We can give a gift of food and hygiene through Gifts with Vision or by calling 1-844-715-7969. They thank everyone for their generous support.
Most of that message. Mothers having to write an indelible marker on their children's backs should stick with us for a long time. A thing that I might have forgotten is that eventually we're going to be having an annual meeting, and I can't remember when it is. So we need to get reports in to Dorothy. Yeah, I don't know if it'll be when it was scheduled because Pam Stickney had COVID and she and Sue weren't able to get together. So I don't know if it'll be that. But anyways, reports need to get in if you're happen to be one of them. If there's nothing else, let us pray. And there is a response. So we are praying about choices. And our response is,
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
When possibilities invite us to journey, elusive, beckoning onward, but never seemingly in our grasp.
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
When dreams glimmer in the distance, fading, clouded, hidden, or shining with new brightness.
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
When established patterns collapse into the uncertainty of the unknown and security dissolves into a memory.
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
When the illusion of success threatens to divert us and silence our soul's yearning to seek your will.
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
When we think our journey is ending in the starlit glow, may we turn to you to find that there are still new beginnings ahead.
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
When the uncertainties that come with health and jobs, finances threaten our peace of mind and self-assurance.
God of wisdom and promise, give us courage to travel on.
God, we know that as we travel, we will meet others along the way who need our help. The decision to do so or not will be ours. It can be with our time, our resources, or talents. Help us to know how best we can serve. In the meantime, we can always pray. And we do that for those in this congregation and those we love who need our prayers. Those who are taking treatments to improve their health, both physical, emotionally, and mentally. Those who are in difficult relationships, are finding it difficult to get out of them. Those who fear their safety and security, especially the Ukrainian people, especially those who are separated from their families. The Canadian who volunteered to help and lost his life. Ukrainian soldiers who are fighting a desperate war. And the innocent victims who fall along the way. Today we keep in our prayers Judy Brownlee on the passing of her brother-in-law, George Cole, her sister Doris's husband. In their gathering this week, may the family have fond memories to share. And in this week of Christian unity, we pray for all our brothers and sisters. We trust that our like-minded missions will draw us together to work for your community in this world to become a reality sooner than later. These are our requests and pleas, held up to you who already knows all, even the things that we may feel that we keep hidden away in the corners of our minds and hearts. Amen. And let us stand and sing. So let's go and seek places to serve God's people who are in need. And let us do this as one body, held together by the love of God, reinforced by the Spirit, the strength of the Spirit, and with Jesus as our companion. year, people of many cultures look forward to the new Chinese zodiac designation and its meanings. The Chinese zodiac specifies one of 12 animals in a 12-month lunar calendar. The new year begins on the second new moon after the winter solstice. That's, of course, when you can't see any part of the moon with the naked eye. Each animal's or sign's characteristics are attributed in the new year to the people born under that sign. Complementary elements such as this year's water also affect the zodiac's prediction. So, in the Chinese horoscope, 2023 is the year of the rabbit, or more specifically, the year of the water rabbit. The rabbit's believed to be the luckiest of the 12 animals to be born under, and is considered a gentle animal that thinks before acting. I question this idea given their prolific breeding practices. The year of the rabbit represents peaceful and patient energy. The water element suggests tapping into inner wisdom and trusting instincts. Together, the year of the water rabbit indicates focusing on relationships, diplomacy, and building bridges in one's professional and personal relationships. Those born in years associated with the rabbit specifically, okay, here you go, 1939. Nobody? Oh, true. 1951. 1963. Oh, okay. 1975. I think from here.
Not likely.
No, not likely. Not likely. 2011. Yes. Keep going. You shall have good fortune, patience, and prosperity this year. So.